Writing a book is a fantastic way to capture the essence of what you offer, your expertise, your unique approach, your unique viewpoint in the world.
Welcome to Breaking Money Silence, a podcast series aimed at helping all of us talk more openly about money. Your host, Kathleen Kingsbury, is a wealth psychology expert who is doing what she does best, speaking about taboo topics. International speaker, author, and founder of KBK Wealth Connection, Kathleen understands money and our relationship with it. Now, here is Kathleen.
Hi, this is Kathleen Kingsbury, the host of the Breaking Money Silence podcast. This year in 2024, we're doing a special series all year long on unleashing your true value, specifically designed to help women advisors and related financial professionals identify and communicate their value so they can earn more, be more profitable, and have greater financial well-being. We're going to have guests from the financial services industry, coaches, consultants, people who can give you a different perspective and offer different tactics for unleashing your true value so you can feel better about making sales, feel better about earning more, and ultimately we can close the gender wage gap in the wealth management industry. So I thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hi, I am Kathleen Kingsbury, and I am very excited about our episode today. I'm going to be joined by Judi Harrington, and we're going to talk about if there is a book in you. And for those of you who have a book in you, you probably already know what that means. For those that haven't even considered it, we'll certainly take a look at that. But let me tell you a little bit about Judi before I have her join us. Judi Harrington is from Judi 411. That's her business. She's a storytelling expert who helps business owners turn their ideas into powerful stories that speak to the world. Judi works collaboratively with businesses and brands to ensure their message resonates well and converts their audience. She's also the author of a humorous memoir, which I've purchased and read, called Fuckery, The Life and Times of a Legend in Her Own Mind. And you can laugh because it's funny. She also works as a writing coach, and she's devoted to ushering writers on the path to self-publishing. She works alongside entrepreneurs to bring their books to life, or their ideas to life in a book. And she works in several areas, nonfiction, memoir, and health and wellness. So again, today we're going to talk about Judi, about publishing, what it means to work with a book coach, and how do you decide if there is a book in you. Welcome, Judi, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be part of this conversation.
Yes, it's so fun. And just full disclosure for the audience, I have worked with Judi on a couple of occasions. So if you go to my website at kbkwealthconnection.com, you can take a look at her work in that regard. But today we're going to really talk about much more about the book coaching, which is only one part of what Judi does. She works miracles with copy, I can tell you that. So I have written several books, Judi, as you know.
Yes, I do.
I'm a 5-time author. I am about to have the second edition of my 5th book, Breaking Money Silence, come out. And I'm always encouraging my colleagues, my friends and clients to turn their ideas into books. Part of me wonders if that's because I don't want to write another book or because I'm so passionate about what writing can do for you. But writing a book, you know, in my mind, it establishes credibility. It helps you develop your thoughts. You know, for me, developing a program, it can really be helpful to think through at that very detailed level. And ultimately, when I wrote my first book, it was really about wanting to just write a book. I just felt like this is something I want to do in my life. I had no idea I would become a serial business book writer. But you, as a book coach and as an author, why do you think the women who are listening into this podcast or their allies should spend time to actually write their book? I know I'm a little crazy, but why should other people sit in their pajamas and spend a lot of time writing down their thoughts?
Yeah, it's certainly not a glamorous process, that's for sure. As the queen of sweatpants and t-shirts and messy bun when I'm doing my own. But Whether it is a bucket list item or something that an author wants to bring to light in terms of their business, writing a book is a fantastic way to capture the essence of what you offer, your expertise, your unique approach, your unique viewpoint in the world, or the experience of working with you for the entrepreneurs who are listening. It's a great way to capture that essence and then share it with a broader audience. And you can think of a book as just another way to connect with potential clients and followers who might prefer to absorb information in a different way. One clear example is a few years ago, I edited a book on sleep written by a sleep coach who had built a very successful business coaching high performing professionals in the tech industry. These clients were, often the A-type personalities, constantly on the go, and they were in many cases on the verge of burnout and needed solutions for their sleep. And while many of them wanted in-person coaching and real-time feedback, others engaged differently. Some followed her newsletter, some tuned into podcasts she'd appeared on. And that's kind of what tipped her off to bringing all of the content that she had been producing over the years, her blogs, her newsletters, even her social media posts, and encapsulating them in a book. What's great about a book is that you can revisit the book at any time, whereas the podcast, might have to go search for it, or a newsletter, you don't know where it is in your email. And if you're, not someone who wants to do one-to-one coaching, you just want to get some tips of doing, a book on this topic was really helpful to those types of consumers. So basically, she realized that not everyone learns in the same way. So she crafted the book to provide that guidance. So similarly, if you're a business owner, writing a book allows you to offer value to people who may not be able to work with you directly or who simply prefer reading. And it's a way to provide your insights in yet another format. And it gives you gives people the flexibility of learning from you. And it's a way to reach more people. I mean, we
Yeah,
would
I
love
mean,
to.
I think in terms of, like, I think about when I wrote my first book, it was a bucket list item, or co-wrote. It was called Weight Wisdom, and it was in a different field than I'm in now. And then when I wrote what I called my first big girl book, because it was hardcover, McGraw Hill,
Yeah.
and by myself, I really, as a speaker, wanted to use that to establish myself and my credibility. And one of the things that's really interesting for anybody who's out there that's listening that hasn't written a book yet but wants to is I can remember the day before I wrote a book doing a workshop and how I was treated versus the day after I published and I could say I was a published author. Now, I haven't really changed. I was pretty much the same person. However, the perception of me changed. And so, certainly there's some ego in there, but there's also this credibility piece that it's like, wow, you took time to do this process, to put down your thoughts. And one of the things that's very different, because my book, the first book came out in 2003, the second in 2010, is that nowadays you can self-publish. Now, for
Yes.
me, I've traditionally published The Crazy Person That I Am 4 out of the 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have one self-published book. I have the second edition of The Breaking Money Silence, which is coming out in about a month, is also self-published. So, Judi, tell us, because that's a question I get a lot from people. And as a book coach and as a writer and as an author, tell us, like, why should we self-publish, or should we traditionally publish, or like, how do we make that decision?
Well, I made the decision myself to publish my memoir. I went the self-publishing route simply because I did not want to wait and ask permission from anybody. See the title if you really know what I mean. And, and I also feel like the traditional publishing model is very rooted in, again, asking permission. It's like finding a literary agent and selling them on the idea of your book and then waiting for them to sell that idea to publishers, or going directly to publishers and kind of, crossing your fingers and hope that they'll take your idea. And so to me, it was just me being stubborn and like not wanting to ask permission of the world to say what I had to say. But really, from a business perspective, what I felt was really important was that I could retain my own intellectual property. So, for instance, a lot of folks who have read my book have often said, "Oh, I heard this in your voice. When are you going to do an audiobook?" And which audiobooks, spoiler alert, are a whole other endeavor in addition
Yes.
to writing
Yep.
your book. And so, what I have opted to do is I'm in the process of exploring having audiobook rights available for sale. And that's a little bit different because I would probably go like with a traditional route, but at the same time, they're my rights. I don't have to, I can negotiate the terms and what works for me.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think with self-publishing, I mean, my experience, and I did explore it a couple of times and
mm,
obviously have made the leap.
mm,
First of all, in 2003, the publishing industry was very different. Second of
yes.
all, self-publishing does give you a lot more control.
Hmm.
It allow if you are somebody that hasn't walked through the process, it might feel more overwhelming than working with a traditional publisher, but there
Hmm.
certainly is a potential for more money. So tell me a little bit, is there money in writing a book even if you self-publish, or is that a myth?
I wouldn't say it's an outright myth that there's no money to be had. I think you have to come to the table with the understanding that you are now making an investment in yourself and then calculating when you're going to get that return on investment and be very clear with what that proposition is for yourself and then take clear steps to bring that to fruition. So, for example, when my book first came out, I did make a good chunk of change, as we say
Yeah,
in
that's
the
a technical
biz.
financial term,
Yeah,
chunk
it's a
of
great technical
Yep.
financial term. It is truly the technical one. But I would say it was probably around between six and $7,000. And then because I was also on the hook for doing my own marketing and doing all my own um, book event scheduling and all those things, frankly, I just got burnt out. Plus, I also write for clients, so I had to put that aside and to say, okay, well, then that's what I made from the book so far. And but then what came out of it was the book coaching. That was the great big surprise to me in writing a book is that it opened up a whole new pillar of my business. People started approaching me saying, "Oh, you're an author and you're a self-published one, and can you help me on the self-publishing path to get my book written?" And that's how it actually came to fruition with the sleep book. And from there, I was able to monetize my skills as a writer and editor to help bring that book into the world. And then I also do consults on book ideas and helping get people positioned to get a book in direction. So another example of this is I had a functional medicine doctor approached me a couple of years ago. He had a manuscript done, wanted to get the book published. It was way out of my league in terms of technical skill, but I was able to get him in touch with a publisher who then paid me a referral fee. So there's smaller and incremental ways that you can start monetizing. At least in my case, I was able to monetize in that way. For the entrepreneurs and other authors listening, potential authors listening, one of the other ways that you can monetize your book is when you have a speaking engagement, you can negotiate to have a certain number of your books purchased for the audience. And that's one way to make some more money on the book that you've written. And also the speaking engagements, they're very often paid. You can also think of that as another income stream adjacent to having written a book.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would say, having experience writing several times, and obviously a speaker, first, and now really leaning into the coaching and consulting, is that it's have a strategy around it, a business strategy around
Absolutely.
how do I want to use this book. And we're not saying that you can't make money on the book, but it's don't be disappointed if it takes a lot of work and you need to kind of think about how is this part of my overall strategy.
Hmm.
But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves, right? Because we
A
love
little
to talk
bit.
business and business books. So let's take a
Right.
step back and just think about, in addition to, okay, this might be a good idea for your business, how does somebody know if there's a book in them? I mean, I kind of just knew, but how do you see your clients coming to you or people realizing, hey, there's a book in me. I want to spend some time writing it?
Well, for me, it was, I heard people constantly say to me, Judi, you have the best stories. You should write a book. And it wasn't a casual comment. I heard it often enough that I kind of felt like the universe was really speaking to me. I'd also have been writing a lot of these stories down as a way to capture my children's childhood. So I didn't forget and they would know, the different chapters of their lives. So for people out there listening, if people are saying to you, you should write about this or your stories need to be shared, take note. The people, it may sound like a casual comment, but I feel like the more often you hear it, it's usually a sign that you should definitely consider it. And the writers I work with often come to me because they have that same experience. People said, you need to tell these stories. I have never heard it from, what you talk about from that perspective before. Or, you have a really unique way of looking at the world and people could benefit from it. Those are types of those, like I call those the verbal recipes that people can keep their ear to the ground for in their experience. And that's usually a sign. But for a lot of people, I mean, to your point too, there's an internal aspect to it as well. Like you, Kathleen, I knew I always wanted to write a book. I just didn't know when it was going to happen, but I kept at the writing process myself. And that's so it can be an external sign or an internal sign. Either way, you need to really listen, whether it's your intuition or feedback from people around you. Those are usually the two most common ways to know if it's time for you to really sit down and consider writing a book.
Yeah, and what is really interesting is, when people are listening right now, it might feel overwhelming. Oh, there's a business side, there's a writing the book. By the way, books can be 100 pages, they can be hundreds and hundreds of pages. So you can also
Oh,
decide what type
can
of book.
I
Yes.
just say something about
Yeah.
that? That I literally had a call with an author this morning, and she's already written one book, but she wants to write a second one. And we talk often about the concept of a tiny book. And I always give the example of Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist as a powerful small book. I believe that book is less than 100 pages long. And it has been a timeless piece of literature that has generation after generation have been reading that book. I mean, you don't have to write War and Peace to be considered an author.
That is true. That is true. I am actually going to put a link in the show notes to that particular book so people can take a look. I want to
Yes,
take a quick break, Judi, but we
sure.
will be back in a minute and we're going to get into more of like, what is the first step and how might a book coach help you? So going from big picture to kind of practical, actionable steps. So hang in there. We'll be right back with Judi Harrington of Judi 411.
Feeling exhausted from the constant struggle to communicate your true value? Are you battling the fear and uncertainty that often accompany building a service-based business? If so, the Unleash Your True Value private coaching program could be the solution you've been searching for. Designed by Kathleen Burns Kingsbury, wealth psychology expert and money mindset coach for the ambitious woman poised to elevate her business to new heights. Find out if the program is right for you. Simply email kbk@kbkwealthconnection.com now to set up a free consultation.
Hello, we are back. We are talking with Judi Harrington. She owns a company called Judi 411. She's a storytelling expert. She's a writer, an author, a book coach, copywriter. Is that the correct term?
Yes, it is. Very
Excellent.
happy.
Copywriter.
Very.
And we've been talking about, is there a book in you? Let's really switch gears a little bit, Judi, and get very practical. So if somebody listening in is wanting to write a book or considering writing a book, or maybe somebody's writing their second book, like what is the first step that someone should take if they're interested? Like a relatively small step.
Well, I love this question because I like to fly in the face of conventional wisdom whenever I can. And a lot of times people think that the first step is start an outline. And I have a very different approach. It comes down to three simple things. You want to think about what you want people to know, how you want people to feel, and then what do you want people to do? And think about what is it that I have that I want people to want my readers to know. So one of the prompts I give my authors often is, what are the top 10 things that you hear yourself telling clients all the time that they're like, oh, I never knew that.
Look, I'm taking notes. I was like, oh, maybe Judi can help me with my workbook.
You're on to me, Kathleen. You're on to me. Then the next thing is like, how do you want them to feel with that knowledge? So you want them to feel empowered. You want them to feel aware. What's the emotion? You want them to feel inspired, challenged. You want to give them comfort. You want them to feel seen. You want their experience to feel normalized. Like whatever that feeling is, think about what that feeling is. And then finally consider, what do you want them to do? The great call to action, which is, is similarly to what we have in copywriting, the great call to action. What do you want them to do? Where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do next? Same thing in the book. Like, what do you want them to do at the end of this book? Like, for example, in Breaking Money Silence, it's like, what do you want them to do? I want them to break money silence.
Yes,
very clear.
Pretty obvious call to action.
It's a pretty obvious call to action, but it's so important. It's so important. And so I tell people to really, and again, I say this to authors who come to me looking to write their book. I'm like, okay, the first exercise is feel no do.
I love that. I had a coach who told me about feel no do, and it's been really helpful in terms of speaking engagements. I haven't thought about it in terms of book writing, but I totally see how that's applicable. And for some people out there, if outlines are your thing, go for it. But I know when I used to get hired to write thought leadership pieces, that, the companies that would hire me would be like, we'd like to start with an outline. And I'd think, I don't.
Oh, I know.
Because that isn't the way I tend to think. But so, yeah, let's definitely have people think about what's the best way to start. Start with the feel no do. I changed it up. I tend to.
And you can change it up. It doesn't have to be in that order, as long as you touch on those three things.
And so in terms of book coaching, I have worked with book coaches in a variety of capacities. Even when I worked with a traditional publisher, I'll spare you the story, but basically when I realized they weren't doing what I thought that they had contracted to do, that it was really important that I get somebody with some expertise on the team in terms of book writing. So when you work with somebody as a book coach, or in general, how do book coaches work with people? And, why should I invest? Because I know that's a question that on people's minds, like, okay, so I'm not going to make as much as Oprah off a book. I'm going to take all this time in my jammies to write this book while I'm not making money. So why should I invest more money in a book coach? And I actually think it's a worthy investment, but you tell us what you think.
Well, I mean, the obvious is that you want some accountability. There are many people out there, myself included, who need to check in with somebody about, I'm actually doing this thing now, right? That's the most baseline, but really it's more than that. A book coach really serves as the mirror for you, and we help you identify what resonates most with your ideal reader. So we really get into the nitty gritty of like, who are you looking to speak to about this? Like, the great saying, if you speak to everyone, you speak to no one, applies as well as much in copywriting as it does in book writing. You have to niche it to a certain degree. Another example here is I have a client who is an estate planning attorney. She's writing a book on how to start your own law practice. And it is niched specifically to women who are working in traditional law, the 6-minute environment, the billable environment, who want to get back their time while also retaining their financial agency. So it's really, we've identified exactly who it is we want to speak to. And once we know who that person is, it makes the writing so much easier.
I got to jump in real quick, Judi, because I can remember when I wrote, which one was it? It was How to Give Financial Advice to Women, the first book I wrote by myself. And I remember, and there's some value in collaborating. So co-authoring, there was some value there too. But I just remember sitting there thinking, there is a male financial advisor sitting across the table from me. And as I'm writing, what am I saying to him? And it really helped me zone in
Yes.
on what I wanted to say and who I wanted to say it to. Not to say that women advisors couldn't benefit, but back then it was really about bridging that gap.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
accountability, audience, what else do you help people with?
We really just, and we shape that content in speaking in that way. To your point, that we are also like the bridges of, so making sure you're not writing in a vacuum and you're keeping that reader in mind. It keeps it focused on what on the reader's experience. But also it's like giving you the structure and support throughout the entire process. So a lot of my writers come to me, and the very first thing we do, I'm like, I just want the brain download of what's going on. Tell me just write stream of consciousness, give me something. And then from there, I'm able to kind of pick out the themes and pull together maybe what the structure could be. Or they give me something that is somewhat structured and maybe a little out of order, like the order of operations is a little off. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe if we move this discussion point sooner, it will flow more easily to the next. So we get into like a lot of the technical aspects of writing, and really about balancing your creative vision with the reader's needs. We're always like bridging that gap for you, because we're sitting in the seat of your ideal reader and really thinking about what that person is looking for, what their needs are, what their feelings are about things. But back to the feel, know, and do. What are they feeling? What do they wish they knew? And what do they want to know to do next?
And it's interesting, kind of as we wind down, one of the things that I think is challenging about self-publishing, especially if it's your first book, is making sure that the product you put out is the highest quality possible. And maybe this is me being a traditionally published snob. But, there is a way in which a self-published book can be really great for your career, but a quickly not thought out self-published book isn't necessary. It's like a bad marketing piece. You just don't want to do that. So you really do want to think those pieces through, and having somebody like you, there's other types of business coaches out there. It's like, find someone to go on the journey with you, because it can be a really wonderful journey, but it also can be kind of lonely. My husband said to me once after my Breaking Money Silence, which was the last book, full book I wrote, he said to me, he goes, "Are you going to write another book?" And I go, "Why?" He goes, "You're kind of in your own world." And, I just hard to be present when you're so in your thoughts. So it's really nice to have someone on that journey with you. By the way, he was thrilled with Breaking Money Silence, and he is supportive, but just, wanted that weekend buddy back who didn't have to always be writing. Judi, it's so fun to chat with you. I mean, time has flown by. There's so much knowledge you have. So where can people find out a little bit more about the various things you do? Because today we just talked about the book coaching, and how they might want to work with you or follow you or all that good stuff.
Yeah, there's always the best stop on the train is my website, judi411.com. And that's where you can learn about book coaching, as well as my done for you and done with you writing services. I also have a free download called 3 Writing Myths Stopping You from Writing Your Book and How to Overcome Them, which is my list of, there's some tools in there, but there's also, I kind of debunk a lot of the mind monkeys that writers come to the table with. Like, is my idea good? Am I really a writer? I don't have time. And we get into a little of the nitty gritty around that. And I kind of debunk those myths for them, along with some resources for.
Awesome. I'll definitely put that link in the show notes, and I appreciate it on behalf of the listeners that they get that freebie. And it's been such a joy to break money silence with you, talk about something that I don't talk about a lot publicly, which is, my passion for writing and my belief that books can really help people on a variety of levels. So thank you, Judi.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Breaking Money Silence, hosted by Kathleen Burns Kingsbury, a wealth psychology expert, author, and founder of KBK Wealth Connection. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast app and leave a review. Also, share this episode with your friends and family. It is a great way to get the conversation started. For more money talk tips and information, or to hire Kathleen to speak at your next event, go to www.breakingmoneysilence.com.